The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air, mingling with the scent of pastries and the soft murmur of conversations. The coffee shop was a sanctuary of warmth in the bustling city, with its exposed brick walls, hanging plants that cascaded from macrame holders, and the soft glow of Edison bulbs that cast a golden hue over wooden tables. This was Alex's favorite place, a refuge from the chaos of everyday life, where the world seemed to slow down just a little. Every morning, like clockwork, Alex would push through the glass door, the little bell announcing his arrival, and join the line of caffeine seekers waiting for their daily fix. It wasn't just the exceptional coffee that drew Alex back day after day. It was the ritual, the familiarity, and if he was being completely honest with himself, it was also the barista with the infectious smile and eyes that crinkled at the corners when he laughed. Jamie had been working at the coffee shop for about 6 months now, and in that time, he'd become as much a part of Alex's morning routine as the oat milk latte he ordered without fail. Jamie wasn't like the other baristas. He treated coffee making as an art form, his movements precise and deliberate as he crafted each drink. His passion was evident in the way he described the flavor notes of a new single-origin bean or the care he took in creating the perfect rosetta on a latte. But it wasn't just his dedication to coffee that made him stand out. Jamie had a way of making every customer feel like they were the most important person in the room, remembering names and drink preferences, asking about weekends and workdays. For Alex, those brief interactions at the counter had become the highlight of his mornings. The way Jamie's eyes would light up when he spotted Alex in line, the casual, the usual, that made Alex feel like he belonged, the way their fingers would brush during the exchange of cup and payment. These small moments had been building up, creating a current of anticipation that Alex couldn't quite name but felt deeply. It was on a particularly dreary Tuesday morning that everything changed. The rain had been relentless, turning the city into a gray, soggy mess. Alex had rushed into the coffee shop, his coat damp and his mood dampened by the weather. But as soon as he stepped inside, the warmth enveloped him, and the familiar scent of coffee grounded him. Jamie was behind the counter, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms decorated with intricate tattoos, a pencil tucked behind his ear, a remnant of his other passion, sketching during quiet moments at the shop. "Rough morning?" Jamie asked, already reaching for a cup and scribbling Alex's name on it, though they both knew it was unnecessary. There was no way Jamie would mix up his order. "Is it that obvious?" Alex chuckled, running a hand through his rain-dampened hair. "Just a bit," Jamie replied with a wink. "I think you need something special today." Alex watched as Jamie crafted his usual latte with an extra flourish, his hands moving with practiced ease. When the drink was ready, Jamie slid it across the counter with a smile that seemed different somehow, a bit more tentative, a bit more meaningful. "On the house today," Jamie said. "Everyone deserves a pick-me-up on days like this." Alex thanked him, their eyes meeting for a moment longer than usual before he turned to find a seat. It wasn't until he'd settled at his favorite corner table, laptop open but forgotten, that he noticed it. A small note scrawled on the sleeve of his cup. In Jamie's distinctive handwriting, it read, "Kiss me before it cools." Alex's heart stuttered in his chest. He looked up, searching for Jamie, but the barista was busy with another customer, his face betraying nothing of what he'd just done. Alex stared at the note, reading it over and over, wondering if it was meant for him or if there had been some mistake. But no, Jamie had written his name on the cup, had handed it to him personally. This was intentional. The note was playful, flirtatious, and completely unexpected. Alex had never been one to wear his heart on his sleeve, had always been cautious about showing interest, especially in public. But there was something about Jamie that made him want to take risks, to step outside the carefully constructed boundaries he'd set for himself. As Alex sipped his latte, the warmth of the coffee spreading through him, he couldn't help but think back to the first time he'd walked into this coffee shop, 6 months ago. It had been a recommendation from a coworker who had raved about the quality of their espresso. Alex, a self-proclaimed coffee snob, had been skeptical but willing to give it a try. The moment he'd stepped inside, he'd been struck by the atmosphere. It was exactly the kind of place he loved, with its mix of rustic and modern elements, the playlist that alternated between indie folk and jazz classics, and the wall of books that customers were encouraged to borrow from or contribute to. But what had truly caught his attention was the barista behind the counter, who had greeted him with a smile that seemed to light up the entire room. "First time here?" Jamie had asked, somehow sensing that Alex was a newcomer. "Is it that obvious?" Alex had replied, echoing the words he would repeat months later on that rainy Tuesday. "I have a good memory for faces," Jamie had said, "and yours isn't one I'd forget." The comment had caught Alex off guard, the directness of it, the hint of flirtation. He'd fumbled through his order, suddenly self-conscious under Jamie's attentive gaze. And when he'd taken his first sip of the latte Jamie had prepared, the perfect balance of bitter and sweet, he knew he'd be coming back. Over the weeks that followed, a rapport had developed between them. Jamie would recommend new drinks for Alex to try, and Alex would share his honest opinions, sometimes to Jamie's amusement when he'd wrinkle his nose at an overly fruity blend. They discovered shared interests, a love for obscure indie bands, a penchant for true crime podcasts, and a mutual appreciation for the works of Haruki Murakami. These interactions had been brief, constrained by the line of customers waiting behind Alex, but they had accumulated into something significant. There had been moments when Alex had considered asking Jamie out, moments when the connection between them seemed to crackle with possibility. But he'd always hesitated, unsure if he was reading too much into Jamie's friendliness, afraid of making things awkward in a place he'd come to consider a second home. And now, with this note, Jamie had taken the leap that Alex had been too cautious to take. "Kiss me before it cools" was both an invitation and a challenge, a playful nudge towards something more. The metaphor wasn't lost on Alex. Just as coffee was best enjoyed while it was still hot, some opportunities needed to be seized before they passed. Yet, even as excitement bubbled within him, doubt crept in. What if it was just a joke? What if Jamie was this flirtatious with everyone? What if acting on this note led to rejection or, worse, made things so uncomfortable that Alex would have to find a new coffee shop? Let me explain why this matters so much to Alex. For him, this wasn't just about a potential date or a fleeting attraction. It was about allowing himself to be vulnerable, to take a chance on connection in a world that often felt isolating. Alex had spent years building walls, protecting himself from the pain of rejection, from the complications that came with opening up to someone. He'd had relationships before, but they had been safe, predictable, lacking the spark that he felt whenever Jamie smiled at him. This note represented a crossroads: continue on the safe path he'd been traveling, or veer into unknown territory where both heartache and happiness might await. The decision weighed on him as he sat there, the latte growing cooler with each passing minute, the metaphorical clock ticking on Jamie's invitation. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few minutes, Alex made his decision. He took a deep breath, gathered his courage, and stood up. The coffee shop was less crowded now, the morning rush having subsided. Jamie was wiping down the counter, his movements methodical, his expression unreadable from a distance. Alex approached the counter, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure everyone in the shop could hear it. Jamie looked up as he approached, and for a moment, uncertainty flickered across his face, quickly replaced by that warm smile that had become a fixture in Alex's mornings. "Everything okay with your latte?" Jamie asked, and Alex couldn't tell if the casual tone was genuine or a cover for nervousness. "It was perfect," Alex replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "But I think I might have missed something important." Jamie's eyes met his, a question in them, a vulnerability that Alex hadn't seen before. "Oh, what's that?" Alex held up the cup, the note facing Jamie. "I think I was supposed to do something before this cooled down." A blush crept up Jamie's neck, coloring his cheeks, but he didn't look away. "And did it cool down?" "Not completely," Alex said, taking a step closer to the counter. "But I think I'm cutting it close." Jamie's smile widened, relief and anticipation mingling in his expression. He leaned forward slightly, closing some of the distance between them. "Well, we can't have that, can we?" The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Alex was acutely aware of the other customers, the barista working the espresso machine, the world continuing around them. But in that moment, all he could see was Jamie. All he could feel was the magnetic pull drawing them together. With a courage he didn't know he possessed, Alex leaned across the counter and pressed his lips to Jamie's. The kiss was brief, gentle, a question more than a statement. Jamie's lips were soft, tasting faintly of coffee, and when Alex pulled back, the look in Jamie's eyes told him everything he needed to know. I've been wanting to do that for months, Jamie confessed, his voice low, meant only for Alex's ears. Me too, Alex admitted. I just didn't know if you felt the same way. I thought I was being obvious. Jamie laughed, the sound warm and infectious. I guess I needed to be more direct. The note was definitely direct, Alex said, feeling lighter than he had in years, as if a weight he hadn't even realized he was carrying had been lifted. Though I have to say, it's a lot of pressure to put on a first kiss, having to do it before the coffee cools. I like a bit of urgency, Jamie replied with a grin. Besides, it worked, didn't it? Before Alex could respond, another customer approached the counter, and Jamie reluctantly turned his attention to them. But not before saying, "My shift ends at 3. Wait for me." Alex nodded, unable to keep the smile from his face. "I'll be here." The rest of the day passed in a blur for Alex. He tried to focus on work, on the emails that needed responses and the project deadlines looming, but his mind kept drifting back to that kiss, to the promise of seeing Jamie after his shift. He found himself touching his lips absently, replaying the moment over and over, each time feeling the same rush of exhilaration. At 3 o'clock sharp, Alex was back at the coffee shop, nervous energy making him fidget as he waited for Jamie to emerge from behind the counter. When he did, having changed from his work apron into a casual button-up and jeans, Alex was struck again by how attractive he found him, not just physically, but in the way he carried himself, the confidence tempered with kindness. "You came back," Jamie said, a hint of surprise in his voice, as if he'd half expected Alex to have second thoughts. "Of course I did," Alex replied. "I've been thinking about you all day." They decided to take a walk, the afternoon sun having broken through the clouds, turning the rain-soaked city into a glistening landscape. As they strolled through a nearby park, their hands brushed against each other, once, twice, before Jamie took the initiative and laced his fingers through Alex's. The simple touch sent a thrill through Alex, the physical connection a tangible representation of the bond that had been forming between them for months. They talked for hours, moving from the park to a small bistro for dinner, where they sat at a corner table, knees touching under the tablecloth, sharing stories and laughter. Alex learned that Jamie was studying graphic design, that he'd moved to the city 2 years ago after a bad breakup, that he had a collection of vintage coffee grinders that his friends teased him about. In turn, Alex shared his own stories, his job as a software developer that paid the bills but didn't fulfill him, his dream of writing a novel someday, his close relationship with his sister who lived across the country. With each revelation, each layer peeled back, Alex felt himself falling deeper, the connection between them strengthening. But as the evening wore on, reality began to intrude on their bubble of newfound intimacy. Alex had always been private about his personal life, especially his romantic interests. He'd come out to his close friends and family years ago, but he still felt a lingering hesitation about public displays of affection, about the potential judgment from strangers. Jamie, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease with himself, unafraid to hold Alex's hand in public, to look at him with undisguised affection. It was something Alex admired and envied in equal measure. "You got quiet," Jamie observed as they walked back towards the coffee shop, where they'd both left their cars. "Everything okay?" Alex hesitated, not wanting to dampen the perfect evening, but also feeling the need for honesty. I'm not as comfortable with public displays as you seem to be. It's something I'm working on, but..." Jamie squeezed his hand reassuringly. "We can go at whatever pace you're comfortable with. There's no rush." The understanding in Jamie's voice, the absence of judgment or disappointment, made Alex's heart swell. "Thank you. It's not that I'm not proud to be with you. I just have some baggage to work through." "We all have baggage," Jamie said with a gentle smile. "Part of getting to know someone is learning how to carry it together." When they reached the coffee shop, now closed for the day, they lingered by their cars, reluctant to end the evening. The streetlights cast a soft glow over them, creating a pocket of intimacy in the quiet street. "I had an amazing time tonight," Alex said, meaning every word. "I'm really glad you slipped me that note." "I'm glad you acted on it," Jamie replied, stepping closer. "For a minute there, I thought I'd made a huge mistake." Alex shook his head, reaching out to touch Jamie's face, tracing the line of his jaw with his fingertips. "Not a mistake. A beginning." Their second kiss was different from the first, slower, deeper, a conversation rather than a question. Alex felt himself melting into it, all his earlier reservations fading away in the warmth of Jamie's embrace. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Alex knew with certainty that this was something worth pursuing, worth fighting his fears for. "Can I see you again tomorrow?" Jamie asked, his voice husky. "I'll be at the coffee shop in the morning, as usual," Alex replied with a smile. "I'm in outside of my workplace," Jamie laughed. "Though I do enjoy making your lattes." "I'd like that," Alex said. "Text me." They exchanged numbers, shared one more kiss that threatened to turn into many more, and finally parted ways, the promise of tomorrow hanging between them like a bright star guiding them home. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of discovery and connection for Alex and Jamie. They fell into a rhythm. Alex would stop by the coffee shop each morning. Jamie would have his latte ready, sometimes with a heart or a message drawn in the foam. In the evenings, they'd meet after Jamie's shift or after Alex finished work, exploring the city together, finding hidden restaurants and quiet corners where they could talk for hours. But as their relationship deepened, challenges began to emerge. Alex's discomfort with public affection became a point of tension, not because Jamie pushed him, but because Alex could see the momentary hurt in Jamie's eyes when he would pull away from a touch or a kiss in crowded places. Jamie never complained, always patient, but Alex knew it affected him. Then there was the matter of Jamie's past. The bad breakup he'd mentioned had left scars, making him sometimes pull back just when things were getting serious, a self-protective mechanism that frustrated Alex even as he understood it. Jamie would become distant for a day or two, not answering texts promptly, canceling plans at the last minute, only to return with apologies and renewed affection. "I'm not going to hurt you like he did," Alex said one night, after Jamie had opened up about his ex, a man who had cheated on him repeatedly before finally leaving him for someone else. "I need you to trust that." "I do trust you," Jamie insisted, but the shadow in his eyes told a different story. "It's just hard sometimes, letting myself be vulnerable again." Alex understood that feeling all too well. His own reluctance to be open about their relationship stemmed from past experiences too. The casual homophobia he'd encountered in school, the uncomfortable questions from coworkers, the one time a stranger had hurled a slur at him and a previous boyfriend as they walked hand in hand. These experiences had taught him to be cautious, to guard his heart and his identity. Their friends became both a support system and a complication. Alex's best friend, Maya, was thrilled that he had finally found someone who made him happy, but she also worried that he was holding back too much, not fully embracing the relationship. "You light up when you talk about him," she told Alex over lunch one day. "But you're still keeping him at arm's length in some ways. Don't you think he deserves all of you?" Jamie's friends, particularly his roommate, Eli, were protective of him, having seen the aftermath of his previous relationship. "Just be careful," Eli warned Jamie when they were alone. "I know you fall hard and fast, but make sure he's as invested as you are." These outside perspectives, well-intentioned as they were, added pressure to a relationship that was still finding its footing. And then came the misunderstanding that nearly derailed everything. It happened about 2 months into their relationship. Alex had been stressed about a project at work, pulling long hours and having less time for Jamie. Communication had become sporadic, with Alex often too exhausted to do more than send a quick text before falling asleep. Jamie, with his insecurities already on high alert, began to withdraw, assuming that Alex was losing interest. The tension came to a head when Alex, finally free of his work deadline, went to surprise Jamie at the coffee shop, only to find him in what appeared to be an intimate conversation with another customer. A handsome man who was making Jamie laugh in a way Alex hadn't heard in weeks. Jealousy, an emotion Alex wasn't proud of but couldn't deny, flared within him. He left without making his presence known, hurt and confused. When Jamie texted him later, asking if they were still on for dinner, Alex replied with a curt message saying he was busy, offering no explanation. Jamie, sensing something was wrong but not knowing what, became defensive. Their texts grew increasingly terse, miscommunications piling up, neither willing to be the first to bridge the gap. For a week, they existed in this limbo, both miserable but too stubborn or scared to reach out properly. Alex still came to the coffee shop, but he'd time his visits when he knew Jamie wouldn't be working. Jamie would check his phone constantly, hoping for a message that didn't come. It was Maya who finally intervened, tired of seeing Alex moping around. "This is ridiculous," she told him bluntly. "You're clearly miserable without him. Whatever happened, just talk to him about it." "It's not that simple," Alex protested, but even as he said it, he knew she was right. The thought of losing Jamie over a misunderstanding, over his own insecurities, was unbearable. With Maya's encouragement, Alex went to the coffee shop during Jamie's shift, his heart in his throat as he pushed open the door. The familiar bell announced his arrival, and Jamie looked up, surprise and hope and wariness all flashing across his face in quick succession. "Can we talk?" Alex asked when he reached the counter, aware of the echo of their first real conversation, the tension that now stood where ease had once been. Jamie nodded, his expression guarded. "My break is in 15 minutes. Wait for me." Those 15 minutes felt like an eternity to Alex, who sat at his usual corner table, rehearsing what he wanted to say, how he could explain his behavior without sounding accusatory or jealous. When Jamie finally joined him, removing his apron and sitting down with a careful distance between them, Alex felt a pang at the loss of the easy intimacy they'd once shared. "I'm sorry," Alex began, deciding that starting with an apology was the safest bet. "I've been acting like an idiot." Jamie's expression softened slightly, but he remained silent, waiting for Alex to continue. "I came to surprise you last week, after my project was done," Alex explained. "I saw you with that guy, the one with the blue jacket, and you were laughing, and I got jealous. I know it's stupid, but I've been feeling like I've been neglecting you, and seeing you so happy with someone else, I just assumed." Understanding dawned on Jamie's face, followed by disbelief. "You mean Nate?" "Alex, Nate is my cousin. He was in town for a conference and stopped by to see me. That's it." Alex felt foolish, the jealousy that had seemed so justified now revealed as completely unfounded. "I didn't know. I should have just asked you instead of pulling away." "Yes, you should have," Jamie agreed, but there was no anger in his voice, just a tired sadness. "But that's not the only issue, is it? You've been distant even before that. Sometimes I feel like you're not fully in this relationship, like you're holding part of yourself back." The observation hit close to home, making Alex uncomfortable with its accuracy. "I know," he admitted. "I'm trying, Jamie. It's just, I've spent so long protecting myself, being careful about who I let in, who I let see the real me. It's hard to change that overnight." "I'm not asking for overnight," Jamie said, reaching across the table to take Alex's hand, the first physical contact they'd had in a week. "I'm just asking for effort. For you to try to let me in, to trust me with all of you, not just the parts you think are safe to show." Alex squeezed Jamie's hand, feeling the connection between them rekindling. I want to be the person you deserve." "You already are," Jamie assured him. "You just need to believe it yourself." They talked for the remainder of Jamie's break, laying bare their fears and insecurities, the miscommunications that had led to their week of silence. It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still hurt feelings to heal, trust to rebuild, but it was a start, a recommitment to the relationship they both wanted. As Jamie stood to return to work, Alex caught his hand. "I love you," he said, the words he'd been feeling for weeks but had been too afraid to voice. "I should have told you sooner, but I was scared. I'm not scared anymore." Jamie's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and joy washing over his face. "I love you too," he replied, bending down to kiss Alex, right there in the middle of the coffee shop, not caring who saw. And for the first time, Alex didn't care either. He kissed Jamie back, feeling a freedom he hadn't allowed himself before, a happiness uncomplicated by fear. The weeks that followed were transformative for both of them. With the air cleared and their feelings for each other openly acknowledged, they found a new depth to their relationship. Alex made a conscious effort to be more open, not just with Jamie but with the world, holding his hand in public, introducing him as his boyfriend to colleagues and acquaintances. Jamie, in turn, worked on his own insecurities, on trusting that Alex's love was genuine and lasting. They had disagreements, of course. All couples do. But they faced them together, with honesty and respect. 6 months after the note that had started it all, they celebrated their anniversary at the coffee shop, sitting at the same corner table where Alex had first contemplated the meaning of "kiss me before it cools." Jamie had convinced the owner to let them have a private dinner there after hours, transforming the space with candles and flowers. "I have something for you," Jamie said, sliding a small box across the table. Inside was a key, simple and silver. "A key to my apartment," Jamie explained. "I thought it was time. No pressure to use it right away, but I wanted you to have it." Alex took the key, feeling its weight in his palm, the significance of what it represented. "I have something for you too," he said, reaching into his pocket. He handed Jamie a folded piece of paper. Jamie opened it to find a note, written in Alex's neat handwriting. "Let's warm each other up." Jamie looked up, confusion giving way to understanding as Alex continued. "I've been thinking about moving in together. My lease is up next month, and I thought maybe, if you're interested." The smile that spread across Jamie's face was answer enough, but he said the words anyway. "Yes. Absolutely yes." They sealed the decision with a kiss, one that held the promise of many more to come, of a future built on the foundation they'd created together. The coffee shop that had witnessed the beginning of their story would now see the start of a new chapter. As they left that night, hand in hand, Alex couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in 6 months. He had gone from a man afraid to reach for what he wanted to someone who embraced love openly, who had learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness but strength. Jamie had taught him that, had shown him that the warmth of connection was worth the risk of getting burned. And in return, Alex had helped Jamie believe in love again, had proven that not everyone leaves, that some people stay and fight for what matters. The coffee shop lights dimmed behind them as they walked into the night, towards the home they would soon share. The note that had started it all, "Kiss me before it cools," had been a reminder that some opportunities are fleeting, that courage is often rewarded. But what they had built together was anything but fleeting. It was a warmth that endured, that they stoked and tended together, a love that wouldn't cool as long as they both chose to keep it alive. And in that moment, walking through the city that had brought them together, Alex knew with certainty that they would. Some stories begin with a note and a kiss, but the best ones, the ones worth telling, continue long after the coffee has cooled. Total _char_count, 18,852.